Well, this morning I watched about an hour and a half or something. I don't know. It looks like I have like 45 minutes or less left, which I'm not going to watch. Of the Thunderfoot versus dlandoncole, I think is his name. And I have these notes as I went through, and kind of points, and they brought up the stuff I thought I'd answer, but really, some of the stuff was so belabored, all due to Thunderfoot having comprehension problems, I would think. The video I just recorded is like rambly, even by my standards, and sort of pointless. So I'm just going to make a couple observations. His argument that religious extremism, for example, why Islamic countries have a high percentage of Muslims, whereas the Christian nations now are more mixed. He tries to relate that to Islam, to the nature of Islam. And it's just, when Landon tried to bring up the economics of it, at one point he actually said, that's like we're talking about the causes of global warming and you're telling me to consider how many pirate ships there are at sea. No, I mean, and that because Islamic law would kill you for this and that and the other. Well, so did Christianity through history. What broke that down? Why? It's not because of Christianity that we overcame the Christianity. It's other things. There might be factors like that, but I wanted to take these two data points, and he has a map for Christianity, a map for Islam, and he thinks when Landon is saying, well, what about Hinduism? That's I don't have that chart. It's not, and he's saying we don't have enough information to make good predictive models, so we're reaching for things, and yet he's ignoring some of the most obviously important issues. Economics and the geopolitics. Local and imperial conflicts. And so, but rather than go through all of these details and rehash the conversation that way, I mean, it just confirmed that Thunderfoot has really a terrible ability to comprehend. I say this a lot. I don't expect people to agree with me. And I very rarely, if I can help it, judge them on whether they agree or not, per se. But at least I would want them, at least not the minimal level. The minimal level is, can you comprehend? If you cannot comprehend what Landon is saying, some really clear things about why it's not fair to compare the Cordoba house to the Crusaders house or whatever, I guess some Westboro Baptist church thing. And these positions of Thunderfoot are pretty bad, can be judged as bad conclusions. But I don't understand how somebody with the mental capacity, evidently, to do research science can't even know what the other person is saying or why. Can't just know that and have a way to disagree. I mean, if he is a good researcher, then it's got to be some sort of like idiot savant thing. Like when you put him in his area of expertise, suddenly his ideas can go together. Because if he's doing science with this kind of reasoning he displays in a back and forth, then that's not possible. You can't do science like that. And he's applying scientific ideas and charting and distributions and showing bell curves, and yet he's not at all being structured in the way you would expect he knows. Does he think it doesn't apply? No, because he's trying to apply it, and he knows he might not have a statistical sample here or there or other, and that it's social. He knows it's not a hard science, but he's trying to apply these mathematics, and yet he just gets it so wrong. Um, and also, he definitely starts off in the Landon in a very manipulative way, trying to control and frame the conversation and do gotchas. You know, uh, he tries to tell Landon that, but you are the champion for all of my detractors. You're representing. And Landon's like, no, I think I'm just one. He's, well, do you think you were the best detractor? And Landon's like, no, I think this guy's skeptical engineer or engineering skeptic or something. I wasn't familiar with the user, but I'm going to look him up. Had a better one. And then, Thunderfoot is trying to make Landon argue proxy for this guy. And it's like, Landon has these 25 points. Why don't you just go through them? And then they just go over and over. And Thunderfoot is just saying the same thing. Oh, but this, but this. And he's not progressing. Or Landon will Thunderfoot was saying, well, people judge you by the actions. And Landon's like, well, no, they sort of judge by the perception of the action, which is mediated heavily through the media these days. People don't know the facts, don't know the actions. And Thunderfoot will back off and like, yeah, well, of course, I agree, of course, yeah. And then 2 minutes later, he's saying the same thing. But you get from this comes from looking at the actions. Just right back to the same thing he just agreed was too simplistic or wasn't as careful of a statement. I mean, it's just really amazing. And it's also amazing because, as I said, I figured Thunderfoot was, a close to neutral positive. People have to be advocating their atheism and whatnot in some sense. But no, I think like the tone that I've seen of him before, which is sort of condescending, I think I sort of know it all, but I wouldn't hold it against him. But now in retrospect, I see, it's like I probably could take that as a signal because it usually comes out this way that there's a thought process below that sort of thing. But I still consider that superficial. I'm not going to judge because one person's elitist tone of voice, that they perceive as elitist, isn't necessarily elitist. You can easily misapprehend something so superficial as that. But it does put me in mind that, we have these problems with this atheist community and what it's trying to do in terms of activism. And if it's really trying to increase religion, increase atheism and decrease religion, well, it's going to have the opposite effect. Thunderfoot seems to be talking about wanting to shift the bell curve of Islam into a more moderate direction, but he's doing that by attacking the moderates. He needs to be promoting the moderates. You have more of those, then that'll move the whole thing in a moderate direction. And he's obviously, if he did anything, pushing him another way. And then there's the amazing atheist shock jock type of approach to atheism. Same thing. I mean, this is terrible if this was to represent atheism. Anybody with doubts about whether atheism turn you into a bad person, is going to get the wrong confirmation about their fears. And I think it goes back to, this is something I just already believe, that, I think the best thing you can do for atheism is certainly not demonizing religion. The best thing you can do is just to be out of the closet, to be to be brave enough to say, hey, I don't think we should have in God we trust on the money. Things like that, that's about as forceful as it's probably productive to get. And instead, to create systems of morality that are compassionate on atheist or even secular grounds. Taking this approach like Thunderfoot of, would the world be better with less religion or not? It's like, we don't know. It depends. It depends. If it's a bunch of atheist Nazis, not necessarily. You just can't know. It's not the factor that will tell you whether the world is more peaceful, less impoverished, less brutalized. And so, yeah, I really find Thunderfoot's thought process to be much more primitive than what he's able to convey when he's written himself a script and is presenting his videos. And when he is doing that and sounding really reasonable, but there's some framings or images that are juxtaposed, and you want to say, well, those are just incidental, No, those aren't incidental. Those are the things, him relating the Westboro Baptist Church to the people trying to make a Can't We All Get Along religious center. That's the real Thunderfoot. That's how it actually works. The scripting, the superficial part, is the slow intellectual cadence, the vocabulary that's written into the script. So, um, so yeah, that's my. I feel my impression has been confirmed, and whereas somebody that's in that community that's had interactions with Thunderfoot, there's easy accusations that could be made. Oh, you just wanted Thunderfoot's attention, or oh, you had this spat with Thunderfoot and you just holding a grudge, and oh, and this and that kind of stuff. You know, I'm outside of this, coming in, watching the train wreck, and so I think it's pretty clear none of those kinds of criticisms would apply to me. Um, and and yeah, I mean, it's just my honest take on this is that Thunderfoot's ability to actually reason rationally on this subject is so bad it does call in question his ability to reason in general. Um, but I noticed there's a lot of people that are specialists that can reason really well, sometimes extremely well, in a very narrow area. But they have interests beyond that that take them into areas where they don't reason so well. So, whereas at one time I thought, hey, it's good that a scientific, calm type guy could get this kind of following for his atheism message on YouTube. No, I think Thunderfoot got this through, you know, shock jock anti-theism, just like so many of the other most popular atheists, sadly, but with a veneer and a mask of intellectualism that makes it more palatable to some, makes it easier for some to enjoy those particular kinds of passions. So anyway, that's my take on Thunderfoot, and my take on Landon is that he's a very smart guy, and if you want somebody to promote atheism, uh, I would say try him out, and certainly that's the other thing is this is what's happened to the atheist community, and I'm judging what's risen to the top in terms of popularity. But don't get me wrong, I think there's a lot of people um, in the rest. Uh, well, there's a lot of people in the middle, let's say, of the amount of popularity, in these thousands of subscriber kind of level that really do a great rational job. But they probably aren't as popular because they don't go around half-cocked, uh, helping to justify, um, bigotries and biases and crazy non-statistical concepts. But anyway, yeah, I can't really recommend watching it, but I wanted to see if I was getting off on the wrong foot and just how bad Thunderfoot's approach is, and it's really bad. It's really bad.